All right, so let's talk about the core the core features that QuickBooks Enterprise has in the context of comparing it with QuickBooks Pro or Premier. Number one, QuickBooks Pro has a maximum of 3 users. QuickBooks Premier maximum of 5 users. QuickBooks Enterprise can go all the way up to 30 users. So that's big differentiator, obviously, mostly because you're going to deal with a bigger company size. The other really important thing is structurally, QuickBooks Enterprise is built a little bit different. So there's other things you can do in multi-user mode. You can adjust inventory, you can edit and delete list items, you can change sales tax rates, you can define custom fields, you can set closing dates, you can make deposits with multiple users making deposits at the same time, and you can change any list order. All these things doing here, you're seeing here, you cannot do on multi-user mode, QuickBooks Pro or Premier. The other piece is faster performance. QuickBooks Enterprise was designed in a multi-user environment. Obviously, you got up to 30 licenses, so it has to be optimized for that. And it was also optimized for remote desktop. Basically means that if you have a Windows server, there's a service in there called terminal services or remote desktop services. So you can build your own cloud per se on a Windows server and use QuickBooks Enterprise multiple users and have people log in remotely to it. And also it's designed for larger databases. So any QuickBooks database that is 300 megabytes or more, it's going to be sluggish, it's going to be slow, and it's probably going to get corrupted. QuickBooks Enterprise is designed to work with these larger databases. And also, have you noticed that when you try to convert from QuickBooks Pro Premier to online, if it has more than 350 targets, 350,000 targets, it doesn't let you convert. Well, that's kind of the same performance point that we use for enterprise too. If you got more than 350 targets, I recommend you need to move to enterprise. Now, one of the important things about it is handling more than 14,000 names on the list. QuickBooks Pro and Premier is limited to the database can only handle 14,500. That's how it's built. And when you reach to that limit, then QuickBooks Enterprise is a natural movement up if you need to keep that information and not have to delete it. And then finally, on this slide, the ability to work with 2 QuickBooks files at the same time, which is also available in Accountant Edition. But from an end user perspective, that is also very, very good to know. All right. I did post the slides on the press on this. All these slides are posted. Go into the chat section. I pasted the Google Drive link. So stop asking me for the slides in the question section. Go into the chat section, click there, and you should be able to see them. All right. Next list of core advantages of QuickBooks Enterprise, and I think this is the one that adds real big flavor into how we function. And as me as a consultant, think of the possibilities of custom reporting. With QuickBooks Pro and Premier, you are limited to 5 and 7 custom fields on the name on the item side. With QuickBooks Enterprise, we go all the way to 15 for items and 12 for names. So we have more custom field options. And then on top of that, within the custom fields, we can restrict the data type that gets entered. Because one of the issues with custom fields, it's garbage in, garbage out. Like I had a client that was trying to they sell tires and they were trying to log the brand name of the car that they were selling it to for reports and marketing. And then some salespeople would put BMW with spaces, some without, some will write B.M.W, some will write Beamer. So the problem is that if we don't have consistent data entry, we're not going to be able to pull the reports that we want. So the nice thing about the restricting the type is that you can create drop-down menus, custom drop-down menus that forces the user to have to choose one of those. And therefore, as a consultant, I can design the entire workflow based on the type of information that they enter in there. So that's a really important piece about that. I would say the other major core function that it has is that it has about 115, I believe is a number of different permission structures. So you can actually do granular level permission to allow or disallow users to do certain areas of QuickBooks. And this is natural because when we're working in a multi-user environment, 10 users, 30 users, you're likely not going to have 30 admin level high trust accountants, right? You may have a salesperson, you may have a warehouse person, and you want to really define and restrict what they can do. Now, I can't tell you anything about what's coming in the future about advantages, but it's going to get even better pretty soon. That's as much as I'll say, and I hope the Intuit legal team doesn't get all over me. But it's great right now, and it's going to get even better in the next few releases because this granular structure, even with 100+ different permission areas, access levels, they're going to add probably double on a specific area. So that's much as I'll say about that. But that's an important piece. The other really important piece about it is combining reports from multiple companies or consolidations. It is also very common that in this mid-market, which are the target clients for enterprise, that you're managing multiple businesses. You're managing the real estate business, you're managing the operations, you're managing the service part, the inventory part. Some companies structure themselves with multiple companies. Therefore, there's going to be a need, if I have multiple QuickBooks files, to consolidate. And this world of consolidating financial statements, it's humongous all by itself. Enterprise can do it. There's third-party apps that can do beyond what it can do. In about 3 weeks, on the November 12th episode, we're going to talk about this specific topic, consolidating multiple company financial statements. That requires an episode entirely by itself. But it's important to know that with QuickBooks Enterprise, it can be done. Now, the other core advantages are that there's a new exciting advanced reporting module. It's really exciting because what it can do, but it's kind of frustrating because there's like 6 people in the entire country that know how to use it. I don't know how to use it myself, so I can't talk about advanced reporting until I feel comfortable enough with it, where I can find the Intuit person that will do another presentation on that. We had a real brief sort of introduction to that about a year ago, probably about 9 months ago in one of our episodes. But when I feel comfortable presenting advanced reporting, I will go ahead and do that. Options to add on advanced pricing and advanced reporting. The last slides, we're going to talk about those. And if we have time, we'll do a little bit of that, but also doing some research. Advanced pricing and advanced inventory. Optional add-ons to advanced pricing, advanced inventory. Advanced reporting is included with all subscription models. And you can also connect your SQL database, your Microsoft database, even Excel, and pull the data using something called ODBC compliant. And if I talk about ODBC compliance, I'll put half of the people to sleep. So basically, there's a driver that can take QuickBooks data and transfer it to other databases. So QuickBooks Enterprise significantly changed how they market their product and how they sell it. Now QuickBooks Enterprise is 100% subscription model. So with the subscription model, you can't just buy the software. You're going to pay an annual fee for it. And I want to talk about the pricing because it is difficult to disconnect the pricing from the product, right? Because the pricing segregates and segments the market. And it's not every small business can do this. But let's talk about for pro advisors, you're going to have a version of enterprise for yourself or one user. So if most of you are pro advisors, I think here, and that's $549 per year. Now for the users, there's going to be 3 flavors. We're going to see the silver subscription, which is going to be the core enterprise product that we're going to talk about, or we're talking about now, and the advanced reporting new module that was introduced last year. There's the gold subscription, which is basically the silver plus the enhanced payroll. That's all built in and rolled into the price. And then the platinum, which is going to have the QuickBooks Enterprise core, the enhanced payroll, the advanced inventory, and the advanced pricing. And now this is still 100% desktop software. This is not cloud-based software. This is desktop software that you install in a computer. The only thing that changes is that you're paying for it annually. So think of it as a lease, basically. Okay, so why subscription, right? Because everybody gets mad about, oh, now I have to pay more. Why subscription? Intuit understands that QuickBooks Enterprise does not really have any competitors at the price range. They absolutely do not have at the price range. No solution out there, or at least I'm not exposed to it, and I apologize if I have to call on my own ignorance later, but no product under $10,000 can do what QuickBooks Enterprise does at the learning curve. That is the most important piece. QuickBooks Enterprise is just QuickBooks. For the QuickBooks user, they don't have to learn anything new. It's just a more robust infrastructure. So that's extremely important. Also, with the subscription that you pay annual, you have unlimited US-based tech support. And I'm going to give you a very strong tip, and I'm going to give away the store with this because this has been a unique marketing position of mine. I'm going to give you a tip about how I use US-based tech support for QuickBooks Enterprise to my favor. Free product upgrade, so that means every year, whatever the new version comes out, they're going to have access to QuickBooks Enterprise training videos, which I'm going to show you now. Everything Enterprise. So everything Enterprise, you Google everything Enterprise, you click on that link, and then you go up here where it says training, and then you log in. User ID here to show you, and you have access to real world training package that they sell for $3.99, and they have all this video. This is the same thing that when people Google mastering QuickBooks Enterprise that they pay $3.99 for. That's all included, and all QuickBooks Enterprise clients have access to this. So I think it's important to know that, because most people that I know had no clue about that. It's a complete surprise for people, and it's there and it's free. And also with the service plan, you're going to have the online backup service and data recovery service in case your database gets corrupted. Now let's talk about the specific prices. And just to give you an idea, so if you have a 5-user QuickBooks Enterprise Platinum client, so this is a client that is going to have 5 simultaneous users, and they're going to want to have advanced inventory. The retail price for that is $3,400 per year. And then Intuit gives you a payment plan per month, so you can actually pay $284 per month. Now, the prices you're seeing here, or the discount, there's a discount of 40% for the first year that expires at the end of the month, and those discounts always vary. And also, we as resellers, we have access to special subscriptions that the public doesn't have access to, which is the bronze subscription and the accountant edition of QuickBooks Enterprise, which I can't go into too much detail with because I'm actually not allowed. But if you contact me directly and you have a client, I can help you get access to other products that are not available to the public. So that's kind of how subscription works, and there's always going to be a discount out there. Now, when you're a QuickBooks Pro Advisor, you can give your client a 20% discount of QuickBooks Enterprise subscription. And what I've done with that is that I bundle Right Networks, which is $55 per user, and QuickBooks Enterprise as one monthly fee for when I present it to my client. So for example, if my client says, Hector, I want QuickBooks Enterprise on the cloud, or Hector, I want QuickBooks Enterprise Online. They do that crazy thing where they take 2 words and put them together and somehow it means something. So I want QuickBooks Enterprise Online. So what we do is we take the core product and we offer the 20% discount, and then we add the $55 per user, and we give the client one price. And we say, look, you can go out there, purchase a server, set it up, and purchase Enterprise. Here's the price. Or you can just outsource this whole thing, put it on a cloud, and here's the flat price. If you want access to this, email me and I'll show you that. I'll give you that price list. I have it published on my website. This price list is not anywhere. This is my own internal price list in which I Frankenstein the Right Networks and the monthly QuickBooks Enterprise services. All right. Okay. I think I'm going to have to go faster because I may be a little bit behind because I have a lot of content to talk about. Okay. So let's talk about QuickBooks Enterprise accountant tools. So what Intuit has done in the past, I would say over the past 3 or 4 years or so, is that they've taken a couple of the accountant tools, so that what's traditionally on QuickBooks Accountant Edition, and insert it into the customer edition of QuickBooks Enterprise. For example, in 2013, the batch enter transactions feature that was in QuickBooks Accountant was added to Enterprise. In 2014, the upgrade to batch enter, where they added invoices and bills, was also added to Enterprise. In 2015, specifically on release 6, all the accountant tools, client data review, statement writer, reclassified transactions, fixed asset manager. Actually, fixed asset manager was there before, was kind of hidden, and statement writer too. But the client data review, which is the reclassified tool, my favorite one, that was added. And then now with 2016, the batch void deleted transactions was added as well. So from this point forward, if whatever you can see on QuickBooks Accountant yourself, you are 100% sure that that QuickBooks Enterprise will do. So QuickBooks Enterprise will have every single accountant tool in it from this moment forward. Now, going back to 2012, okay, what are the features that they added that are, in my opinion, awesome, that make QuickBooks Enterprise better than the Pro Premier counterparts? Find and select items. That is where you can actually search within a description of a product, or a description of an item when you're selling it. The automatic price markup, it lets you configure margin and markup as a fixed percentage that QuickBooks will update automatically as the cost changes. Enhanced inventory receiving, which separates the receiving process from the accounts payable process. Therefore, an item receipt stays as a separate document or a separate transaction than the bill. And that is big sometimes because we don't want the warehouse people to be receiving bills. We want them to do item receipts, and we want the accounting to do the bills, and we want to have a different date, transaction date, for receiving the bill versus receiving the inventory. Then serial and lot number tracking and FIFO inventory costing, that was added in 2012 with the Enterprise add-on. QuickBooks Enterprise 2013. So in QuickBooks Enterprise 2013, they added the automatic PO feature, which is the ability to create a purchase order automatically. So this is a really important piece, right? Okay, because when you have a minimum amount of inventory you're supposed to have and a maximum amount of inventory that you want to have, you really want to speed up the process in which I'm going to turn off my webcam. I think my webcam is causing some of the audio delays there. So we want to be able to take whatever my inventory levels are at the moment, and we want to take the desired minimums and the desired maximums and use that as a tool to create a new purchase order. Default classes was introduced in 2013. Basically, you can have QuickBooks automatically put a class based on a specific customer, vendor, employee, item, or bin. Now it does location tracking, which means inside of multiple locations, we can do bin tracking. So basically, we can have a warehouse location, and then we can have a sub location. It's like a sub location inside of a warehouse. And then barcode scanning was introduced in 2013. Now, so location and bin tracking, multiple location bin tracking, and barcode scanning, it's part of the advanced inventory add-on. The features that were added in 2012 and 2013 that I wanna specifically talk about are the ones that I'm going to do now. So let me maximize the screen, collapse the column, and let's start with a sales order. So I'm going to go ahead and click on sales order. And one of the challenges that we have with big item lists is that when we hit the drop down here, right? So if a client is trying to select an item and they hit the drop down, they have to go all the way up and all the way down to find something. And in a typical QuickBooks Enterprise scenario, clients have 1,000 inventory items, 2,000 inventory items. It's a very typical thing. So sometimes, for example, let's say I'm looking for this product. Let me look for a specific product. I'm looking for this product called Light Pine, but I don't know it's called Light Pine. I know it's a wall unit. Okay, so if I'm actually sitting here and type wall, it doesn't show up. I type unit, it doesn't show up. That's the problem we have with QuickBooks Pro and Premier. However, with this feature is amazing. You click right there where it says Find and Select, and after I click on Find and Select, I can search anything within the item or within the description or even within the custom field, which is actually pretty awesome. So for example, if I was to look for something with the word wall unit, if I just search wall unit and click on search, it actually narrows down every single item that has that within the description. And then I click on add selected items and it adds it right there and then. Now, I do have a little bit tiny solution for non-QuickBooks Enterprise users. And so if you're using Pro and Premier and you're looking for something similar to this is the trick. Ready? When you're inside the sales order and you click on an empty line, and let me just delete this to here, and because I'm about to give up another really big trick that people love. So if you're not in QuickBooks Enterprise, you can do this. You can hit the blank area and you can hit Control L in the keyboard, L like love, right? Control L on the keyboard, and that basically opens up the item list. And then here where it says look for, then I can search wall unit and hit search, and there's my narrow down. And here's the key. If I click on the item that I want to insert or use in my form, I hit Control U, like, I don't know, I can't think of a word, umbrella, Control U. So I hit Control U and basically inserts the item inside of the sales order. So this is like the poor man's QuickBooks Enterprise version of the Find and Select in this type of environment. Okay, all right. So that's what I wanted to sort of show you briefly, because that's actually a pretty interesting trick. The other important, so that's the find and select feature. The other important piece is custom fields, so which I spoke about earlier. So one of the real non-intuitive things about QuickBooks is it's where I have to go for custom fields. But anyway, so I'm going to go to list, and then I'm going to click on item list. Whoops, ips list, item list, and I'm going to go into one of my inventory parts, and then I'm going to start grouping my inventory parts based on the type of material. So it has nothing to do with the item name or the subname. It's actually another attribute that I want to edit. So I double click on any of the parts, and then I can click here where it says custom fields. And when I click on custom fields, I can see we had this one called color. Let's say this one's called material. So I can actually click on define fields. And then here where it says material, I can create a drop down. So I'm going to show you. So I'm going to create a drop down here and click on edit multiple choice list. And then I'm going to create multiple material options. So I'm going to put here wood, metal, and then let's say cotton. That makes no sense, but that's okay. And then so I'm going to have wood, metal, and cotton as 3 drop-down choices. Hit OK. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit OK, and then hit OK. And then when I'm working on an invoice or a sales order or whatever it is, so let me go into an invoice here. And then I'll do my trick here, Control L, and then Control U. And then what I can do is I can enable within my form, I can enable that custom field and see how that drop down works. So I'm going to go here down here into column, and then I'm going to enable material and then hit OK. And then what happens is as I'm working on these forms and entering data, the user is restricted to having to pick one of these. And why is this important? Because I can run a report that shows me products that are only metal or only wood or whatever. Or even better, when I'm doing a find and select, let me show you. When I'm doing a find and select, I can say, look, I'm going to search within a custom field and put here wood. And what that would do is it would only show me my items that are within that wood category. So all of a sudden, we've discovered this thing that has been missing in QuickBooks Enterprise forever, which is general product categories, which we can achieve with custom fields, drop downs, and the find and select items. The other piece that I was talking about is about markup and margin. So let's say this particular product is, I'm going to start with $10. Okay, this particular product is $10. And then I'm going to click here where it says edit markup. And what this basically means is if the product is $10 and I want to sell it for 20, right? If I want to sell it for 20 and I put here sales price 20, QuickBooks will calculate my markup, which basically I'm doubling the original cost, and my margin, which is the amount of profit from my sales price. But it's not just cool because you can see it there. You can actually program QuickBooks to update the cost based on a new purchase. So basically, what does this mean? This means that if tomorrow I purchase this for $12, QuickBooks will automatically mark it up 100% or a margin of 50% and suggest you to sell it at a higher price. That is a huge new feature that they added back in 2012. And I think it goes, I think it's sort of underrated. So automatic PO, that I want to cover. That is really important. So let me show you what this means. So in any of my inventory products, so let's say, for example, that wood door exterior, I can tell it what my minimum is. This is what I desire. This is at what point that I go under that minimum, I need to order more. And the maximum is when I go replenish, how many do I need to get to that maximum? So for example, let's say that my minimum for this product is 25. That means that right now, because I have 20, my trigger is going to trigger me to order, and my maximum in this case is 40. Okay, so again, I have 20 right now, my minimum is 25, my maximum is 40. This item is called the exterior wood door. So we're going to see exactly how this works. So there's a report here only on QuickBooks Enterprise, reports, inventory, inventory stock, whoops, sorry, reports inventory stock status by item, inventory stock status by item, and it's sort of the features hidden inside this report. So when I click on inventory stock status by item, I get this report here, which we're very familiar with. This is available in all versions of QuickBooks, but in Enterprise, we got this button here called Auto Create POS on the top right. If you can see my mouse, Auto Create POS. And when I click on Auto Create POS, what you're going to see is at any point in time, you see a little checkbox there. You can see the checkbox next to those items. At any point in time that the quantity on hand goes below minimum, it's going to suggest you to get to maximum. Okay, so in the case of that exterior wood door, when I click on auto create POs, it's actually going to say, look, it looks like you have 25 of these, sorry, you have 20 of these, you should have 25, and I'm actually suggesting you that you get 20 so we can reach that 40 mark of auto. So this feature is actually pretty awesome. Not pretty awesome, really awesome. And based on the preferred vendor, so you're going to have preferred vendors set up per item. Based on that preferred vendor, the PO will be created for each of those vendors. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and select checkbox for both of these. And you see that there's two vendors. When I click on create PO, QuickBooks is actually going to create two POs, show me the report where they did them, so I can actually double click on each of them and see it. So if I need to make a change, maybe the price changed, maybe the description, I want to change it slightly, the date, the PO number, whatever, I can do that. So that's what that function does. It automatically creates the POs for you to get you to your maximums. Okay, so that is automatically create POs. And let me see from 2012, did I miss anything crucial? I want to make sure before I move forward. Enhanced inventory receiving, that's gonna go, we're gonna have an advanced inventory, QuickBooks Enterprise advanced inventory webinar, and we're gonna kind of leave that for that. Location tracking, barcode scanning, the same thing. Okay, 2014, they introduced sales reps and custom fields on vendor transactions. Another area that a lot of people that dabble into enterprise or dabble in enterprise don't know about. And I want to make sure that you do know about it because it's actually really, really powerful. So when I create a bill, I'll tell you now, when I create a bill in QuickBooks Enterprise, the bill looks exactly like it does in Pro and Premier. There's no difference. However, if you actually, let me just create a bill here. If you actually right click, right? If you right click anywhere in the body of the expenses or the items, actually it has to be the items, so let me change to items. If I right click anywhere here, I can click on where it says customize columns. Okay, it's kind of a hidden feature, customize columns, and then I can add some of my custom fields inside my bills, including sales rep, including color, including material. Color and material were the two custom fields that were set up in there. So when I do this, now I have sales rep info in my bills. Now, this is kind of a big deal because when I create the bill and I choose whatever item is it that I'm going to use, so I'm going to use design for this example, and I'm going to go ahead and put a cost of $1,500, and onto this item, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that it has a sales rep. So there is my sales rep here, and there we go. I'm selecting Hector, and then for color, I'll put here white, and then here I'll put wood. Okay, not 100% focused on the custom fields like color and material. I'm more focused on the sales rep side because I want to show you is something really, really neat having to do with having sales rep inside of a bill. So I'm going to hit save and close here. And then I'm going to do a check as well because having custom fields in bills and checks are both great features about QuickBooks Enterprise. So I'm going to hit customize columns as well and enable my sales rep and my custom fields. And for this particular example, I'm going to pay some other vendor. And let's say this one is also going to be, let's say, this design item. And the first one was $1,500, so we'll make this one, let's say, $1,200. And we're also going to assign this one to a rep. Again, we're focused on the concept of assigning reps to expenses. Whether it's a bill, a check, or a credit card charge. Credit card charge would have the same exact situation here. So let me have an invoice here in which I will pick that same sales rep because then I want to take a look at the profit on the job, and which will be really based on the sales rep's profit. But focus on the fact that I can assign a rep to a particular job. So let's sell this one for, let's say, $3,000. And the most important part is I have to make sure there is a rep assigned. There we go. So now that we have both the income and the cost components, when I pull up a profit and loss, but specifically profit and loss detail, as a profit and loss standard with the columns by rep doesn't work yet with this function, but profit and loss detail works great. So I go to profit and loss detail, and that's obviously going to show me every single profit and loss for all my customers and all my reps, right? But when I click on customize report, and then I'm going to go to filters, and then I'm going to go look for rep in here. And there it is. And then I'm going to narrow down to the specific rep, right? The rep that I used both for the income and the expense side. And I hit OK. You're actually going to see the income and the expense side. So that comes in really, really handy. We can actually see profitability by rep. Now, also on QuickBooks Enterprise 14, they added 2 reports to the contractor edition that are extremely important. So those reports are in jobs, time, and mileage. And the first one is job work in progress, jobs, time, and mileage, job WIP summary or job work in process summary. But before I talk about that one, I want to compare it with the option that we had before. So the option before this job work in process summary that was introduced in 2014, the closest thing to that we had was the job estimates versus actual summary. And let me show you the mechanics of that first before we kind of get to enjoy the greatness of the work in progress summary. So let me do job estimates versus actual summary. And the amount of information that we had before was, in this case, estimated cost, actual cost, the difference, which we could actually enable a percent. That was actually a possibility before 2014. So then we can have estimated cost, actual cost, difference in dollars, difference in percent, estimated revenue, actual revenue, difference in dollars, difference in percent. But basically, the only information we had access to was this is what we think the job was going to cost us when we did the estimate in the very beginning. This is what it's actually cost us so far. Okay, so with this, basically that means that we're over. So by looking at that difference, we see that we're over, in this case, 3.6%. Now, let's look at a job that is not over. Let's look at like this one right here, the Cruz Albert remodel. So we had a job that was supposed to be 200,000. Now it's 129. And basically what it tells me is that there's 35% left of the job. So 35% left of the job. But you have to, in your mind, say, well, what's 100% minus 35%? That's 65%. So in theory, if I am supposed to invoice X amount of this job based on the working process, the only revenue I've actually have earned is 65% of the job. Now the problem is that this report doesn't have access to that, but the working process does. So when I go to reports, jobs, time, and mileage, and click on job work in progress summary, I'm going to go to that job, Cruz Albert, and it says here that 65% that I mentioned earlier. So that's 65.96. It's actually what you have earned so far. So here on the earned revenue side, it actually multiplies that 65% times the amount of money that you're supposed to make on that job. In this particular example, the estimated cost and the estimated revenue is showing the same, but I can change it real quick so we can see it and make it just a little bit more obvious. So I'm gonna go to the original estimate here, and I'm gonna modify this one. I'll just make it much bigger, and so this one, I'll make that one much bigger too. That way, I'll cut a 0 here. That way, I'm gonna save and close. That way, my original estimated revenues are also much higher, and you can see that because we are 65% to completion, what we have in theory, what we have earned, it's 65% of the original estimated amount, which is actually 246,000. And that actually compares it with what we actually have invoiced, which is 200,000. So it's important to differentiate that these two reports do provide a different piece of information, where the job estimate versus actual summary, even with the percentages, it only represents the number in terms of what is remaining on the job, and it only shows you actual revenue. It doesn't show you the revenue that you actually have earned based on the true work in progress accounting methods. Okay, that was a mouthful. Now, The other report that's really important that they added in QuickBooks Enterprise 14 for the contractors, it's here under jobs, time, and mileage, and this one is called committed cost by job. So again, reports, jobs, time, and mileage, committed cost by job. And this one, a little bit harder to explain, but it is a new concept. So before I go deep into it, what usually goes in a job costing report are actually paid expenses. So actually paid expenses or accrued in this case. So actually paid and actually accrued expenses, which come from bills, credit cards, and checks. Now, there are two types of expenses that are actually not accrued and not expense as of yet, but they're happening sort of as we go, which are the committed costs. Committed costs are information that is extracted from one, unpaid wages. So what you see here, for example, that 54,179, those are timesheets that are in QuickBooks that have job costing information that have not been turned into payroll. So traditionally, and you actually cannot double click on this, it's one of the tricky parts, so I can't really see it from there, but those are timesheets that have job costing information in which we have not created a payroll. So traditionally, there was no way to get unpaid payroll to show up in any report, but you can show it up in here. Now, this 15,000 here you see under committed costs, these come from purchase orders. So I'm going to double click on that one so you can see. So like the timesheets that have job costing information, if you have a purchase order with job costing information and that purchase order has not yet been turned into a bill, and that portion that hasn't been closed yet, so that portion that's pending, it is assumed that you're going to pay for that at some point in the future. Therefore, that is the equivalent of a committed cost. So we see the 5,000 here and the 10,000 here. Both of these are showing in the committed cost report, but the 3,000 is not, because that already has been either manually closed or invoiced in a previous bill. So let me close that again so we can see, and I'll close that detail report. So on this particular job, there's $15,000 of committed cost. So let me show you. I'm going to actually double click on that PO, and I'm going to mark it as closed. Right, so I'm going to mark it as closed. That way these items are not open anymore, and I'm going to hit save and close, and that should actually take them away completely from the committed cost report. So I'm going to go ahead and hit refresh when the report comes back up, and you can see they're no longer on the committed cost by job report. So as long as you don't have any open POs that have job costing information, you will not have anything there under committed costs. And as long as you have no timesheets with job costing information, you will have nothing there under unpaid wages. Now, this information still does not affect your financial statements, but it does affect this specific report. Then we have the new assembly features for manufacturers. We have automatically build assemblies with sub-assemblies. This is an issue with QuickBooks Premier, where you can have one assembly where one of the components is an assembly, and then QuickBooks Premier would not let you assemble the top level product before the sub-assembly is being built. So what QuickBooks Enterprise did is, if you have enough inventory to assemble everything that's under the assembly, so an assembly within an assembly, it would actually do it in a single click without having for you to stop what you're doing to assemble the other one. The other interesting one is this one called where used, and I'm going to show you that one. That one I can show you with an example. I'm going to show you exactly how this works, and shouldn't have any glitches with that. I don't know why that working process report. I'm still sort of like perplexed and dumbfounded by the fact I couldn't find that working process report. So I don't know what's going on. Sorry about that. I'm so embarrassed. So embarrassing. Thank you, Intuit, for doing this to me. Anyway, so I'm going to go in the item list, and then I'm going to take a look at one of my inventory assemblies. And then let me go down here to inventory assembly. So I got a couple of inventory assemblies here, and then I'm going to go edit one of these, and then part of my BOM, bill of materials, I have some inventory parts, like for example, this one called pumps, BURB, whatever this is called. So let's say like this product is being replaced with a different product. So what happens is I go and identify my product. So let me search here, pump. I'll search here, pump. And we probably should have an episode just on manufacturing. I'm positive that we should have one just on that. But for now, let's just do a couple of things here. So I right click here and then I click on where used. Okay, so I'm going to right click and click where used, and I'll click on that, and it will list every single inventory assembly that uses this part. And then if I select them all and say, you know what, this product, the P version got replaced by the H version, whatever that is. Whoops, let me go back to that. So I want to replace all these. I'm going to replace the P version with the H version. Okay, so let me put here H version, and I click on replace. It actually goes to every single inventory assembly. Every single inventory assembly that had the P version and replaces it with the H version. So now when I go back, and by the way, if any of you deal with manufacturers, you know how big this is, because this is kind of annoying to have to go double click on each one and figuring out which one has it and replace it manually. But now I can go into the bill of materials and I can see that the P version now is an H version, as you can see, and that's how the product got replaced. So that's sort of a quick a quick view of how enterprise works a little bit better for manufacturers. All right, so the minimum and maximum reorder points that I already explained, they were added in 2014, so that's an important one to just kind of disclaim there. And then we have advanced pricing, which was added in 2014, which I think requires an entire episode by itself, because that tool is actually could be really powerful when you use it in multiple use cases. That was introduced in 2014. Now let's move to 2015, probably the most exciting release in a very long time. This is last year's release because this is the first time that we have the ability to prevent the QuickBooks user from selling negative inventory. Negative inventory is like QuickBooks' worst nightmare and consultants' worst nightmare. And when a client has inventory versus a client that does not have inventory, it is absolutely a whole another type of client. Like the engagement changes completely. The breadth of the work, the amount of work, the mental capacity and state you need to be on to deal with inventory issues is a whole nother ballgame. So moving my clients to QuickBooks Enterprise and disallowing the negative quantity has really changed how I consult work with them. It does make them slower because they can't sell it if they don't have it, but it forces them to go through the process of actually receiving the right product. Okay, sorry about the rant on that. Okay, and then with that, we have an accompanying negative item listing report. There is a negative inventory listing report that basically shows you all the products that have negative quantity on hand. Yeah, that's big. I don't know why we didn't have that before. That's big because that allows me to troubleshoot and concentrate on those before I work on any of the other ones. And when I double click on it, it takes me to my inventory evaluation detail that gives me the entire history about how the product has gone up and down. And then we can pinpoint, like for example, we see here where it went from 0 to negative, we can pinpoint around the time where the issue may have happened. So it allows you to sort of go back to the documents and figure out with receiving reports. And I'm telling you, one of the most common reasons why people have negative inventory is because not just because they don't receive it, it's because they received the wrong one, because there's like 1 digit difference between two products, and some of these clients have like 2,000 products, and there's an X or a R or a P at the end, and they can't tell the difference, and they just change it by one. I would say that's probably one of the most common. So in the negative inventory quantity report, you may want to look for products with similar names to see if they're off exactly by the same amount as your negative. The shortage reports, that's actually really cool. So let me show you how this works. So back into this whole manufacturing thing, let me do an assembly, and let me not a new assembly item. Let me do the actual assembly. So where is my build assembly? Okay, and then let me pick one of my assembly products here. So I'll pick this one right here, and then down here on the bottom it says that based on everything that I have in stock, my maximum that I can build is 7.25 units. Okay, because this is taking every single inventory part and checking their quantities and how many of them are required to assemble this product. So if I wanted to build more than that, so let's say I wanted to build, let's say 10 for whatever reason, in my mind I want to build 10. What happens is it gives you two choices. You can make it pending. That way you can sort of have it printed and just kind of work with it. And then once you fix it, you can actually not make it pending again, complete it. Or you can click on show shortage. I love this. When you click on show shortage report, it shows you a report that tells you every single item that is going to run short of that assembly, and how many you would have to build in order to be able to assemble that. And to make matters even better, we can click on auto create PO and directly create the special order PO that we need to assemble those products that I'm going to be short on, trying to assemble 10. Okay. All right, so that wasn't bad. Report filter enhancements. It's pretty. This is a tiny thing. Whoops, I don't know why this thing is not switching. This is a tiny thing right here. Let me do an inventory valuation report. So when I go to inventory value stock status, I think I have the ability to show the full assemblies in this case, which will actually calculate the items with the assemblies. We can hide the zero quantity. We can switch it to use available. And that actually was, some of these were added before. And then some of the report filters, we can also hide. Not sure if it's this one. Let me see if it's this one. Um, right here, zero quantity. So I can actually hide zero quantity on hand as part of the filters. That way I'm just not looking at inventory that we don't have any on, and that way that we're focused on that. So with really big item lists, it is kind of crucial that sometimes we hide those. Okay, I don't know how much longer I can go. Let me see how many people we have on. We still have 375 people, so that means we can still keep going. That means we keep going. I should take a vote. Should I stop or should I keep going? Put that in the questions. Should I wait for another webinar or should I go 10 more minutes? Put a comment in the question. Just tell me, should I wrap it up now or go 10 more minutes? Okay, all right, good. All right, good, 10 minutes. Okay, it looks, people are telling me go, but no more than 10 minutes. Okay, transaction improvements, subtotal on item quantities and custom fields that you can sort. That is really, really, that is really, really powerful. You can also sort columns. You can print the footer, which is the total only on the last page. And then we have alternative gray lines, which are useful. For the most part, they're useful when you have very long invoices, like they're 10 pages long, and you're seeing a lot of things there. So, all right, so let me go into the invoice. And a couple of things that they added in 15, Enterprise 15, was the ability to sort all these items. So if I want to sort it by rate, I can just click on rate and I'll hit yes there, and it'll resort it for me. If I want to click on SO number, so the sales order that was connected to this, I can sort it. If I want to go by item, I can sort it. Okay, so I find that to be really, really powerful. One of the quick tips I tell you about that is I've had clients that sort and then they want to undo, and you can't undo. So one of the things I do is I create a custom field here under other, and I'm going to call it, this one I'm going to call it number. So I'm basically just going to put like a hashtag number sign there. I'm going to enable it, and it's going to make sense. It's going to make sense soon, trust me. And then I'm going to put here 1. So I'm going to change the order to 1. And then basically I'm going to have a column that says number. And then what I have my clients do is when they put the invoice together, put their 1, 2, 3. That way, this is sort of the original. This is the original order of how they put the product together. So if they go out and they sort by rate, by amount, by quantity, if they're just messing with it, they could always go back and sort this in order. So that's really what I like about it. It's sort of a you can hide it from customers, but you can use it internally to organize your original order and then sort things. Okay, because sometimes you want to sort just to look at the big one and then sort it back, and there's no undo for it. So this is like sort of a quick technique about that. The other really cool thing that they added is the groups. I'm going to show you. I'm going to create a new subtotal group, and here on the subtotal group, I'm going to call it subtotal weight. And this is going to take a while to set up, but But this is going to make a little bit of sense, I think, at some point. So I'm going to call this subtotal weight. Actually, I'm going to have to, I'll click OK, and then I'm going to go back to the item list real quick because I have to show you the real application of this. It's kind of complicated. But I have to go into a custom field, and then I'm going to create a new custom field called weight, or it looks like this one has a whole bunch. So I'm just going to pick one of these. Let me unrequire these, and I'm going to pick one of these at random. I'm going to call this weight. Okay, so I'm picking weight, and then this has to be it has to be numbers, and we're going to put here LBS, right? So I'm just kind of letting the user know that this is a place where they can put the weight of a product. Okay, so I have to set up as a custom field first for this to make sense, and then I'm going to do the customized data layout and go ahead and enable that in there. And I know I'm going, some people are saying, Hector, you're going fast. I'm sorry, there's just a lot of stuff to cover. It's going to be fast. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I don't mean to be the speed Nazi here. Okay, so now that I added weight in there, so let's say, for example, this is 300 pounds, and this is 20 pounds, and this is 100 pounds, okay, whatever it is. So let me go back into my weight. I had a weight subtotal. I'm just kind of showing you a real application of the subtotal, where I'm only going to total my quantity, and then I'm going to total my weight, okay? And then multiply weight times quantity. I don't need the quantity, just the weight. So what I'm telling this subtotal is that I want to take my weight times my quantity and add it all up so I know exactly how much all this stuff weighs. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK and close that. And then let me delete this line here, delete the line. And then I'm going to go right under the product and go subtotal weight. And then what happens is something really cool happens is my weight gets completely subtotal there. And that's just for display purposes. But what can I do with that is I can take a freight charge, right? That maybe we charge, let's say $6 a pound, or let's say 60 cents a pound. And then here under rate, that's going to be, let's say, in this case, the quantity is going to be 60 cents, right? And then under where it says quantity, it says here invoice. On the quantity, I just copy the $3,200 in there. And then basically I have a subtotal of all my weight. And then that's multiplied times whatever rate it is. And then I can charge my freight. That's something that QuickBooks just was never able to do. And this is a real application of the subtotaling of custom fields, which is only available in QuickBooks Enterprise. Man, I can't believe I only have 4 minutes left. Cost available in sales forms. So in QuickBooks Enterprise, we can now enable, so let me turn this on. I'm going to go to custom data layout, and then I'm going to go to columns. I can now enable my internal cost. Okay, so now if I want to see exactly how much money I'm making on a sale, I can enable my cost. And I think that's one of the questions we had earlier. By the way, I'm not really reading a lot of these questions because I'm like by myself. so I don't have the chance to go through all the questions here. So whoops, I changed the template there. So let me collapse this here. So was that the template I was working with? I'll edit it again. So I'm gonna enable, go to columns. I'm gonna enable my cost, and I'm gonna turn off units. Let me turn off all this noise. That way it's just kind of easier to see. So I'm gonna get rid of some of these because they're kind of confusing. I'm gonna get rid of class, and then I'm gonna have cost and rate. So now I'm gonna have to make sure that both cost and rate are in there, but I'm not gonna show my client the cost, so I'll leave it out of that print section. It's just for internal purposes. There it is. Okay, so I'm gonna have my rate. This is how much I'm charging my customer, and then I have my cost, which is how much it costs. In this case, this is an inventory product, so this will be average costing. That is huge. I can't believe we didn't have that like 100 years ago or 10 years ago. So that's something that I really like about the new updates that did in QuickBooks 2015. You can also hide the opening balances from customers, so from your customers if you're consulting with them. That way they don't create new items with opening balances, or they don't create new customers with opening balances. We can disallow selling with overdue customers, so we can actually turn on a feature where if a customer is overdue, you're not allowed to even invoice. This one is one that was added only for clients that work with sales orders. So let me tell you what this is. So I'm going to go into a sales order screen. And again, this is for clients that create a sales order and want to create a purchase order directly from the sales order, but want their vendors to drop ship the product straight to their client. Okay, so when I have the sales order here set up, I'm going to click on Create Purchase Order, and then right here it says Drop Ship to Customer. So that's new. That's new for 2016. So when I click on Drop Ship to Customer and hit OK, basically the purchase order gets created, nothing new, but automatically the customer gets chosen in the dropship screen, and automatically, naturally, the ship to address naturally shows up in the purchase order. So that's the new feature, is if you are creating a sales order and then creating a purchase order from that sales order, and that purchase order needs to be shipped directly to the client, clicking on that box saves you having to choose the customer here and choosing the shipping address here. Okay, so that's the important piece to talk about in terms of what that new feature is. So the one that may make it worth it, because all the other things are small, but this is the one that may make it worth it for accountants to upgrade to the new QuickBooks Accountant 2016, which is the ability to batch delete. So before I go into the feature itself, let me go into the bullet points in terms of what is covered and what's not covered, so we can talk about that in context. First of all, on this release 1 of batch delete, which is the one that was released 2 days ago, you can only batch delete invoices, bills, and checks. Now, logically, we will need access to deposits, right? Customer payments and credit card charges. However, they're not available yet. But again, this is not official, but I read or I think in different discussions that on a future release, maybe R2 or R3, they'll bring deposits and credit card charges, because those are also really important. Okay, but I guess they're going to release it just with invoices, bills, and checks, so we can test how it works. We can filter by payee, which is good. We can show and hide transactions that have other linked transactions. So I'm going to show you an example of that, and trust me, you're going to think that's really, really cool, because we never ever had the ability to see a transaction with another linked transaction in any sort of report. The other really interesting thing is we can filter by transaction date, we can filter by last modified date, and now we have a new filter that we've never been able to use before, which is enter date. So you can get the original enter transaction date and the last modified date. So traditionally, if you modify a transaction, the enter date gets overwritten by the last modified date, but in the batch delete, we can actually use the enter date as well. Also, lastly, my favorite part is instead of batch deleting, I can choose to batch void. And by batch voiding, I can append the memo and actually discuss the reasons why I'm deleting. So I think that's huge. So let's go straight to the tool to tell you exactly how that works. So I'm going to go into Accountant and click on Batch Delete and Void Transactions. Okay, now before I show you exactly how this works, I want to give you some context in terms of why because I was there about a year and a half ago in the session where Intuit was asking, whether or not it's worth talking about doing a batch delete, and they asked us. They said, look, under what circumstances you would actually need this feature. So the main answer was, listen, a lot of our clients are clients that run their own QuickBooks, and then we get hired to clean it up. The most common thing that we have to clean up is we reconcile the banks, we clean up everything, then they connect the bank download, they do like a bank feeds, and then they don't realize that they're duplicating the transactions. So one of the main reasons we would have to go back and delete all these things is because of transactions that the clients duplicate, and that makes a lot of sense. That's why this cleared column was added. So I'm going to click on that clear column there to just show you. So basically, if a transaction has been reconciled, if a check has been reconciled and it's been cleared, it will tell you there that it's not cleared, and you're probably not going to want to delete a transaction that's been cleared. Now, it would be nice, in my opinion, to have cleared as a sort of as a filter up here. That way I don't have to just kind of skip the cleared ones, right? Because you know what happens if you delete a cleared transaction, you're going to mess up your bank reconciliation, right? So let's go ahead and skip the clear ones, and let's take a look at the ones that don't say clear on it. So let's say I want to delete some of these here. Now we'll take a look at this one in particular. Let's focus on the column that says linked transactions. This one in particular has a bill associated with it. So this is a check, a bill payment check, check 505, right? This was originally entered in 12/15/2003, whatever. This is a sample file, so it's got weird dates. And it was last modified on 12/15/2019. So that gives you some insight, when it was created, when it was modified. Typically, when it's created way in the future, that means it came from maybe a bank feed or something like that. So what happens if I actually delete this transaction? What this link transaction option gives you is telling you, listen, down here, you're going to have a bill that is marked paid. When you delete this transaction, that bill will no longer be marked paid. So that gives you just kind of a little bit warning that maybe if it's linked to another transaction, you should think about it twice before deleting it. Again, it could be something that you delete, right? So this could be a bogus transaction, but that's the purpose of having that link transactions column in there. Now, if I go up here where it says show link transactions, I can actually click on that and it will not show me any transactions that have linked transactions. So that would basically narrow down my search to a lot less transactions. Now, the transactions that are grayed out, okay, the ones that are grayed out are either paychecks, sales tax, or tax payroll tax liability payments. Okay, they've grayed out or they disabled the ability for you to delete anything related to paychecks, sales tax, or payroll liability. Why? Because it's going to mess up your tax forms and stuff like that. So they just Intuit, I guess, decided that because that is so dangerous in terms of compliance and stuff like that, that if you need to delete duplicate paychecks, you're going to do those one by one. Okay, so let me select a couple of transactions here that I want to avoid. So let's say I want to avoid all these checks here. Okay, and then I select all the ones that I want to avoid, and then I have two options here. I have review and void and review and delete. And let me show you both. So when I click on review and delete, basically this tells me that these are going to be permanently deleted. There's no way to bring them back, right? There's no way to undo this. You're basically deleting them. If you want them back, you're going to have to recreate them. Okay, now it gives me two options. It gives me backup and delete. So basically it forces you through the process of backing up before you delete it, okay, which is important. Or if I'm feeling really confident about it, I don't want to go through the backup process, because some QuickBooks files are pretty big and backups could take 20 minutes. And if you're at the client's office charging by the hour or whatever, you may not want to do this. You may want to just go straight for it. So if you're feeling really confident about it, just go to delete only. It gives you one more warning. I really like the fact that it gave me one more warning just in case. And then I click yes. And then it goes through the deleting process. Now, when I go to view deleted transaction summary, I can actually print this out if I want to have a record of what I deleted, right? And so if I have a client folder or something and I want to put in there exactly what I deleted that day for that particular reason, that could be something that I document. Okay, so let me close that and let's do the batch void. I actually like the batch void better, and I'll explain to you why. Let's do it, for example, for invoices. And let me, again, I'm going to disable the ones that have linked transactions to it. And I'm only going to see the ones that are open. Okay, so I'm going to sort it by open. And then I'm going to grab all these open invoices, right? So if probably don't want to deal with paid invoices. So I want to select all these ones that are open here. And let's say this happened to be duplicates or whatever. And again, we use the last modified date, the transaction date, or the enter date as a filter, as a good indicator of letting me know whether or not this happened to be a duplicate. So I'm going to go to review and void, and I have the same option, right? I can do backup and void, and I can do void only, right? Now, what I like about the memo is I can actually explain why I voided this. So I can call this Hector's end of year review, deleted all open invoices. Okay, maybe because this is a cash basis type of QuickBooks file, or maybe because the client said, look, I'm sorry, we had a new employee and she really know what she was doing and she was creating an invoice instead of an estimate, whatever, right? Whatever the situation may be. And then I'm going to go to, in this case, let me just go straight to void only. I hit yes. It goes to the voiding process. Again, you get to see a report of that. Um, and then, what's really great about this is because in the memo itself, there's what I wrote. If I go to the transaction, you go to the transaction itself, the transaction is there, it's not deleted, it's voided, and voided basically means that all the values are changed to zero and the word void is added on the memo. So that's what I like about this. You can always see the transaction again in its original form, but it's voided instead of deleted. So this may cause a little bit different um, workflow if you're trying to cover yourself for audit trail or whatever other purposes, which is the ability to sort in the customer payment screen. So when I go to customers and I go to receive payments, now, unbelievably enough, right, you didn't have the ability to do this before. When you're in here, you can now actually click on the job name, on the date, or the amount due, and you can actually sort these by whatever you want. So in other versions, 15 and below, you couldn't sort them. So what you see is what you get. So in QuickBooks Enterprise only, they added this sorting feature. Yeah, that's not a huge feature, but we did see that it was new. So I think it was worth mentioning no matter what.